Moving on now, we're turning our attention over to the grain markets. We were joined by Heartland Farm Partners President Jeff Peterson before the holiday break to discuss the weather situation in South America. But we began the conversation with Jeff discussing those current factors that are driving corn and soybean markets.
You know, really where we're sitting right now in here is it's just been a volatile kind of back and forth type action, but it's been a gradual uptrend in here. And really what we're running into there, we've got a few factors that I think that are creating that situation. Omicron virus overall just kind of puts a headwind against the markets because it's been putting some pressure on the equities, and we've also seen it putting some pressure on energies. And anytime we put pressure on energies, that spills over. But in addition to that, we've got some very positive factors as we take a look at the South American weather situation. And then in addition to that, everybody's questioning, how is our demand going to end up? You know, not only the demand for feed and ethanol, but also on the export side, how's that going to end up? So those are some of the main drivers we've got right now, Bryce.
I've heard you say, Jeff, that we're in a weather market right now. A lot of folks would agree with you about that. Do you see different stages of a weather market, though? And if so, talk about what those are.
Yeah, and there definitely is, and that's something for us to remember. And it's really hard to think that we're in a weather market this time of year. We're used to saying that here in the U.S. when we're sitting there in that May, June, July time frame. But the reason we say it initially in South America is because they are in a critical time where that crop is developing. But overall, the stages in that weather market, if you think about it, it's overall what's going on out there in the climate, or what's the overall pattern. And right now we're sitting in a La Nina pattern, which that does tend to put some drier than we like to see conditions into southern Brazil and into Argentina. And then from there, what you talk about is, okay, we got that pattern, but then we start talking about the weather forecasts. Are the weather forecasts forecasting warmer conditions or drier conditions? And then from there, we move into actually what's the actual weather, what's actually happening. So we're kind of in the third stage there. And then from there, you naturally have a discussion about yields, and people will start saying things like, well, if it stays like this, we'll see yields impacted. And then you get to the next stage, which is actually where people start adjusting their yields, and adjusting it usually as we're talking about drought lower. And so as we get into that phase then we think, okay, so the next phase obviously is you get combines in the field and see how those yields are. But what we do know about a weather market is that the weather market will peak before we know what the actual yields are. What we're seeing right now is we're seeing there's really kind of three stages we're running within. So let me kind of unpack that. So we've got the actual rainfall and temperatures are increasing, okay? And as a result of that, what we're seeing is that we're seeing the precip is less than what we'd like to see. In addition, we've had some discussion out there that we're talking about lower yields, but actually we're now getting into points where we're seeing different individuals, analytical firms out of South America start lowering their yields. Lowering their yields on corn and soybeans both for Brazil, and also seeing some start to lower their yields over on the soybean side. Not yet the corn side in Argentina, but over on the soybean side.
That's got to be to some positive things here in the U.S. for our crop. Something else that we're tracking this time of year has to do with exports. Bring us up to speed where we're at now, and what are the biggest things you're watching for that?
Yeah, on the export side, as we break about corn and beans, so let's talk about corn first. There's two major reports that we always like to look at each week. On Mondays, we get the export inspections, and what that shows is what shipments are going out of the country. And then on Thursdays, we get the export sales, and that tells us what the sales have been for the week. But in addition to that, we also keep a little eye on every morning. USDA does report, okay, what were there for sales from the previous day, and those come through in the mornings. That's not an aggregated report, that's just a daily report. So when we bring all that together for corn, what we look at and say is that with the amount of corn that's being shipped, with the amount that's outstanding, right now we think we're going to be about 7.5% below where we'd have been last year. And actually USDA, that's actually slightly ahead of the pace where USDA really kind of thinks we're going to be at. They were thinking we're going to be down about 9.5%. So as a result there, we think we are in pace on the corn side, and especially because of the fact that the safrinha corn crop was so small last year, we think that's going to give us the ability to be able to go ahead and hit USDA's export numbers. Now over on the soybean side, that's a little bit tougher. As we dig into those numbers, we've all been waiting for China to step in and buy some larger quantities. And it's not that their demand isn't up in their country, because it is. It's just that they bought a lot of beans from Brazil. And as a result of that, they just haven't had to come to the U.S. But believe it or not, Bryce, we still believe it's possible. When we look at what's been exported and what's still out there to be exported, we still think it's possible to hit USDA's numbers. So we're optimistic on the export side yet.
Jeff, based on those factors, as we look to early 2022, are we thinking price is going to go higher for corn and soybeans?
Yeah, so overall what we're looking at is that with this weather market, we think it's going to continue to go forward and see some warmer and drier conditions as we go forward. So as a result, we are and do think that prices will work their way higher into the first part of the year. Now, it's not going to be just that easy to say, because of the Omicron, we're going to have to watch what's going on across the world and see what kind of headwinds that give us. But the thing we do have to start doing, though, Bryce, is we do have to get ready to make some sales. And the reason we have to do that is we know with the weather market, if rains do start falling in South America, we can see prices adjust quickly. So that's something to keep an eye on.
It's never easy, and there's plenty of things to watch for the markets. Jeff, appreciate you joining us to break things down.
You bet. Thank you very much.